Hi, it's Andy, and welcome to the Hills Church podcast. Our hope is that this will help your life and inspire your faith. Thanks again for checking us out. No, it's good to be in church. I haven't been here in 3 Sundays. I actually go to this church the odd time. So it's just good to be back. And I 3 weeks ago I was in my bed. I couldn't move. I flipped my back something was going on. I think I was looking for sympathy. Is that all right? And got a wee bit of sympathy, which is great. I mean, people carrying you stuff, it's amazing. Just tell people you have a sore back and ring a bell. It works. And but the last couple of Sundays, just before we get into the message, I've got to travel, and it's always an honour to get to do that. And just wanted to keep you up to date with what's going on in my world. And as a pastor, as a leader, as a person, as a disciple of Jesus, as a father, as a husband, as a brother, as a friend, all the things, I too am intentional about my personal growth. And the start of the trip was a little bit about that, and went to spend time with an incredible guy called Randy Bazette. And God's just done something crazy, powerful through him and his wife. Randy will be here actually for the ARC conference in May up in Dublin, and becoming almost a little bit of a mentor in my life. So it was great to just go over, be encouraged, be fed, and to see what God is doing in different parts of the world. And we were part of the conversation for ARC, and we've officially agreed to birth ARC Europe, which this amazing, incredible thing has come out of something so small. Out of a small church plant in the northwest of Derry, Northern Ireland. We have 36 churches that we've said yes to launch in the next 18 months, and 104 applications in the system. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up, and got to be in the conversation for what's going to look like. So at the conference this year, ARC Ireland will launch the official ARC Europe conference. It means then that we can move that around Europe, and people all over, Romania, all over Europe are going to be planting churches and be able to get that resource that we had. So, and then ended off in the trip in California and got to preach there at a district church. And they're actually going to send a team over this summer. We're trying to organize that and get dates out really soon. We hope to do some form of outreach relating primarily to kids at the building in summer. So it's been a good few weeks, and it's been busy. Got to go to the Liverpool game this week. Got to take Judah to his first ever game, and as a dad, it was just a really cool thing to do. Not only did we beat them 4-0, but it was nice to spend time with my son and hear every single player's name, where they were birthed, what they ate for dinner. So it was all good, and but a great time. But all to say that there's no place like home. I'm so glad that you're in church this morning, and it's good that you're here. And Nathan was sharing some funny stories earlier this morning with the boys, and I got him to share them with our team as we prayed for service just before the service started this morning. But I just thought I would share that as well before we get into the message. It was funny. I would ask him to come down and share, actually. Are you okay to come down and share this funny story? I think you got it. Let's give it up for Nathan. Did you come down? This is worth a share here. This is worth a share. He's doing some video thing or whatever, so let's go and give it a wee Norway cheer again. Share with us your the secrets that Andy found out this morning.
I don't know how to segue to this. We were part of the church plant team back in 2019. Me and John were basically running church, and we had a trailer because we didn't have the Waterside Theatre as our own premises, so we had a trailer that had everything loaded into it, all the tech, all the Hills Kids toys and papers and everything. And we'd had a few weeks, like Sundays were ropey at the start. Something would go wrong every single Sunday, and it was usually mine and John's fault. Like, we'd forgotten something, we'd done something wrong, we'd dropped the ball. And Andy wasn't happy with how me and John had been for a few weeks. We'd made a mistake, and I think I distinctly remember Andy turning to us and went, "Just don't make any more mistakes, boys." So we must have slept in or something. Jump in the car, trailer on the back, drive up the road, dual carriageway from Eglinton down to Derry, and suddenly we start seeing papers flying everywhere. So we'd realised we'd left the trailer open. So there was papers and there was toys and colouring sheets and everything for Hills Kids all around. So John parks up. We're running around this dual carriageway trying to gather everything, load everything back into the trailer, jump back in the Jeep, and then just we turn to each other. We're like, Not a word to Andy. Not a word to Andy. And he found out this morning for the first time.
Let's get up for Nathan. I just thought that story was too good not to share with the church. But I got Nathan to share that, just not for the crack and the fact that it's kind of funny. I always wondered where my records achievements file went to, and now I know. I say this to say, church, we've come so far. God has done so much in my life, and in the people sitting in these rows, and the people that aren't here with us this Sunday. I think God needs a round of applause for what He's done in our church. There's people in this church that didn't know God that are now do know God. There was people in this church now that were far from God, that are close to God. There was people in this church now that felt that no purpose, and now they feel very connected to their purpose. There was people in this church were discouraged, now they're being encouraged. And I just thought I'd pause for a moment before we get into the message this morning to kind of give reflection to and thanks to God for His goodness and how far He's brought us, and almost in some ways to pause and go, I mean, sometimes we can be so focused on what's next and forget what we're in. And as we reflect even on yesterday, the men's breakfast, I was just really encouraged. 50 or 60 men gathered here yesterday morning, and we had way too many bacon and way too many sausages, but no men were complaining. But we were really inspired and encouraged that God can literally do anything. You know, it says in the Bible, way more than you could ever dream of or imagine. And I don't know your story this morning. I wasn't always in church. I wasn't always a pastor. I was the guy who sat and looked for every single fault in every Christian that I could ever find. And God changed my life, and I believe He can change yours too. So I just would love to, I just wanted to pause a moment this morning to remember God's goodness, because it's only through Him that we're able to do this, and I give all the glory to Him. I sound like an old man now, but it's the truth. But hey, today we are kicking off a couple of week collection of talks. For the next 2 Sundays, we're going to be talking about relationships. Yes, and they're 2 lovely little love hearts right there on the screen. And next weekend, actually, we're going to talk a little bit more because it's Valentine's weekend. I mean, are you set, boys? Have you the flowers bought? You could be really pre-organized like me and let your wife buy herself something through the week. And then PayPal her the money. I mean, it works. But it's going to be Valentine's weekend. But Victoria and I are actually going to be sharing together next Sunday. And we're going to be talking about, honestly, we're going to talk about next weekend is enjoying every single season of your life. Yes? I'm going to give a little bit of a preempt to that message. Enjoy every single season. And sometimes as believers and Christians in Christian circles, we have the tendency to pressure people in different areas of their walk and relationship with each other. And I think we just, as Christians, we've got to chill out a little bit and enjoy the journey. So we're going to talk about that next weekend. But today, we're going to look at some practical ways and how we can get better at being in relationship with each other. And I've titled today's message, Building Bridges, Not Walls. Somebody say, building bridges, not walls. Everyone's awake this morning. And then in the next few months, I want us to focus on the strengths in our relationships. And I want to focus on how we can cultivate and create thankfulness, and how we can reinforce that then with some biblical principles, and how that then can help us thrive in our connections with other people. Is that all good? So this morning, we actually talked about relationships a little bit as well in our life track, and I feel like this is a conversation that, I mean, we could talk for weeks about it. So I have just drawn out 5 kind of points, and I'm going to share some stories, and I hope that can encourage us this morning, right? I think everything comes out of a relationship, and my last point this morning will be how we close that rather than how we start that about our relationship with God. But this morning we're going to kick off by looking at Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. And this is what it says. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Another verse I'm going to look at is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 11. Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up, just as, in fact, you're doing. Another verse, Colossians chapter 3, verse 12 to 14, says this: Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. I was thinking a lot about this conversation this morning, as you do, and I found this almost hard some ways. I mean, to liquidate the conversation and relationships into maybe 2 weeks, but I think it is where we're going. And I thought even about our city, and when I thought about a bridge, and I thought about walls, and I thought about what a wall can do. A wall can stop you, and a bridge can lead you. And I even think this morning for us to talk about our peace bridge. Like, if you were to stand in the middle of the peace bridge there, and you'd watch people walk across, but we as local people know much more about the context. It's not just a way to get people from A to B. It's a symbol of reconciliation, unity, and hope. The Peace Bridge is a big thing in our city. Whether you call our city Derry or Londonderry, we just decided to call it the Northwest because I don't want to offend anybody. Nobody getting offended this morning. But for many years, our city was marked by division. But the Peace Bridge was designed to connect, not divide. It was a statement that said, we choose to move forward together. In fact, when you look at the Peace Bridge, and even if you Google it and you read in a bit more, there was actually way more in the Peace Project and the peace idea than I even realized as a local person. But the reality is, bridges lead to unity, and the Peace Bridge has done that, and for our city it has been amazing. Would you agree with that? And in our relationships, we have to choose. I think we have to make a choice when it comes to our relationships with each other. To build bridges, not walls. And I feel that we have all got the potential to do that. I think you have the potential to build bridges and not walls. I think that people will come to faith, people will be encouraged in the things of faith. I think the way the local church grows, I think the way the gospel grows, I think the way the gospel advances, I don't believe it's through a flashing light, it's not through anything else. I say words like revival. I use that old-fashioned word today, which is a move of the Holy Spirit, a move of God. And I believe we are a part of that move of God. I do believe that. If that's old school for you today, hey, it is what it is. I believe we are seeing God move in a powerful way, and it is only the start of it. But I believe God moves best through us, through you. And so therefore, your relationship with my relationship, our relationship with other people is so, so powerful. And I'll close when I bring this message to an end this morning to talk about the importance of the better we are connected to God, well, then the better we really relate to other people, because ultimately that's true. But our relationship with one another is so important. And if you would even understand this morning, the reason probably why you're sitting in the seat you're sitting on this morning is because you were invited here or came to this church with someone else. It probably wasn't a flashing light like we read in the stories of the Bible when they saw the star and they followed it to the manger, and there was the baby Jesus. And today I think the stars in the sky are actually the people on earth. I think you are being used as a conduit to connect people to their God-given purpose. I believe you are being used in this day and age to connect people to Jesus. I think God's got a plan, a purpose for you, hey, to fulfill all that God has for you, but also to help other people do that as well. Are you excited about that? One person is. A few more people as well. But how do we liquidize this, and how do we get this into some kind of conversation? Because we've got 15 minutes left on our clock. Because everyone else is already thinking about lunch. Why does Sundays always happen that we do, there's no such thing as really breakfast or tea on my Sundays. It's just one big massive feed in the middle of the day. Anyone else? I call it brunch, dinner. Doesn't make any sense. You're not even funny. Point number one. The power of encouraging words. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21 says this: the tongue has the power of life and death. Words shape our relationships. They can tear down or they can build up. Our words can build walls or they can build bridges. When we speak words of encouragement, affirmation, and thankfulness, we create a culture and an atmosphere where love and trust flourishes. When we think of Jesus, he spoke continually words of life to people who were broken, rejected, and lost. Not just the people that he hung out with and was best friends with. Not just the people that got life the way he did life. When Peter messed up, Jesus didn't condemn him. Instead, he restored him with words like, "Go, sir, and feed my sheep." This morning, I got the perfect opportunity to illustrate this very point. Because Judah Gamble decided to get up at an ungodly hour. And it's funny, the evening before, I'm sitting preparing this message about the power of our words. And then he appears this morning. And I had a choice to make this morning. What words was I going to say to my son? Get up there. But we have a choice when it comes to our words. And we'll come to that in a little moment. Here's the bottom line. Your words have the power of life and death. That's what the Bible says. And what are you doing with your words? What are you doing with your words? Point number 2. Focus on what's right, not just what's wrong. If you want to be a bridge builder and not a wall builder, focus on what's right, not just what's wrong. Philippians 4, verse 8 says this: think about such things, and you can expand on that for yourself later. You see, it's so easy to find everyone else's faults and forget about our own. It's so easy to find other people's shortcomings. It's so easy. Listen, it is the easiest thing in the world for anybody in this room to point out what someone else isn't doing right. Easy. It's so easy for us to create our own little atmospheres of what's perfect and have it all right. And as a church, we should be the place, the biggest advocate for people growing. Right? We should be the biggest atmosphere for this. This should be the biggest pot, if it were a flower pot, that people can come and grow in. But guess what? In order for people to grow, listen, we got to be willing to have grace. We'll come to that in a little second. But we got to be willing and allowing to focus on what's right with people rather than just pointing out what's wrong. I'm a preacher. I'm a pastor now. God has put me in charge of leading this church for this season of my life. And often I meet people in maybe a pastoral conversation, and less am I getting drawn down to this focus on what's going wrong. I'm tending to focus on what's right. I met someone recently and we're really, really struggling with their mental health. And I said, listen, take a bit of paper out today when you go home and start writing down all the blessings and all the things that's going right in your life. And trust me right now, when you start to focus on that, it's amazing the way your life's going to go. And if you're here this morning and even you're stuck in some kind of negativity, maybe that's a point for you this morning to start focusing on the positive, because it's incredible what that will do for your mindset, what God has already brought in your life, what He has already done in your life, and it's incredible how that can inspire faith for what can come. You know, people came yesterday morning to seek prayer because they were inspired from what God did and through Ryan's life, and they were given faith that maybe God could move in their life. But if we want to be bridge builders and people who then inspire, would be people this morning that show a bit of grace to people that are learning. Listen, a lot of people in this congregation have had to watch me grow and essentially into the giftings that God has equipped me with. And when I started out this carry-on, I wasn't maybe as confident, I wasn't as sure as I am now. But hey, you know what? The annoying thing about growing publicly is you grow in front of everyone else, and that's just the way it is. And one day my gift will be more perfected. I will be whatever. But here we are, we're on the journey. And I'd rather go on the journey with someone than reach a destination. We should be journey people, not destination people. That is the whole meaning of sanctification. That is the whole meaning of the gospel. It's not really about getting to a destination. Really, it's about a journey. And if you're here this morning, and I just want to encourage you this morning, if you want to be a bridge builder or someone who builds people up, I mean, let's start off with yourself and your own relationship with God. Your spouse, your husband, your wife, the person you're in a relationship with, your sons, your children, your family, whoever's around you. Are you focused on what's right or not just what's wrong? And if you're going to be someone who's always going to remind someone their faults, really? And I think for us, though, as people, I have to really level this out. It is somewhat easy to point out other people's faults. It's easy to spend our time on that, when really we should be focusing on people's strengths and what's going right in their life. Yes? All good? Point number 3. I never do points, and here we are this morning. Show grace, because this is kind of the same thing. Because no one is perfect. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 2. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. You see, every relationship that you have will have moments of disappointment. If we expect people to be perfect, we're always going to be frustrated. But God calls us to show grace, the same grace that he shows us. You see, Jesus showed grace to us so we could show grace to others. You see, someone who never made a mistake never made nothing. And I want to be a person that encourages people to make mistakes, learn from them, and move on. Right? But I struggle with this. I don't like this. Because I expect everybody to not make mistakes. And then they go and don't close the doors of the trailer. And they lose a pile of stuff that I wonder where it was lost. It never got lost. It just blew over the main road from... Help each other. Point number 4. In love. Galatians chapter 5 says this. Serve one another humbly in love. You see, love isn't just words. It's actions. The strongest relationships are those who are both built on people who serve one another selfishly. Help me out with that word. That's exactly the word right there. Your pastor struggles with some words. Selflessly. I just said selfishly. I think that's funny too. Jesus washed disciples' feet. The ultimate act of humility is in John chapter 13, verse 5, I think. Love grows when we serve other people. Whether it's in marriage, friendship, or community. Ask yourself the question daily. If you want to be a bridge builder and not a wall builder, how can I help someone today? You see, small act of kindness goes way further than you think. You know, I spoke yesterday to our men just for 2 minutes as Ryan shared and I spoke for 5 minutes and we kind of actually hung out together. It was amazing. Ryan jumped in and I was like, "You're preaching today, mate." Wasn't he? Didn't he do really good yesterday? He was incredible. But, you know, you read the story of David and Goliath, and that's a really well-known story, and forgive me if I'm just guessing that you would have heard that story, and if you want to find out more, actually, you can read it in the Bible. It's in 1 Samuel, which is a book in the Bible. But it's a story of this wee boy who looked like me. Kidding. this wee man, and he killed this big massive man. He killed a giant, and he threw a stone. And we hear the story, and we often celebrate the fact that David killed Goliath, and it was this incredible form of bravery and all of the above. But in reality, when you read the story of David and Goliath, you read the story, but actually you read the following verse, and it goes on to say that he killed the giant, and he didn't even use a sword. And I think, I made that point to the men yesterday, and I almost think I could camp out in here just for a little second about loving each other and how we do love each other, and how then do we show love, Andy? Like, what does that mean, and how do we do that? And the small actions that we do every day that nobody sees become the miracles every now and again that people want. And I think sometimes when we as individuals and we as people, I think the enemy has us all tricked into thinking that we're really inequipped, unable, underqualified, and not really able to do what we're called to do. I think we're all on that journey. Even in life, we all feel overwhelmed sometimes with our careers, with our jobs. We feel there's this automatic default for us to see the negative rather than see the positive. Actually, there's an automatic default for us to see what we don't have rather than what we do have. And I said this to our men yesterday, you are doing better than you think. And God's give you way more than you could ever dream of or imagine. There is so much more in you. Listen, the small things. When I was away in America for a couple of weeks, someone showed to my house, and I don't even think my wife's seen them do it, and dropped off some Diet Coke. That's a really simple thing to do, Hills Church. How do I love somebody? How can I be the super? Listen, superhumans doesn't really exist. It's ordinary men and women like you and me that God used in the Bible, He's still using today. That show up every now and again and do some very, very simple things. But a simple act of kindness can mean way more than you could ever dream of or imagine. Do you hear that? And if you looked at the story of David and Goliath, I would say this, I would submit this to you this morning. I'd love to have a conversation with your man David after he hit the Philistine, or maybe even before it. Know what he would have said to you? Andy, all I did was throw another stone. He'd been throwing stones since he's 6 years old. It's like country boys are great drivers. Why? Because I look out my door yesterday and they're just racing quads everywhere. And it gives me a heart attack. Because they're doing it since they're kids. It's just the way it is. And so all really David did when he went to kill Goliath, he just got the revelation that his little simple acts of whatever it was, and I know this is a really different part of the story, but all he did was literally throw another stone, and that's what brought the victory. And it probably felt so normal, it probably felt so ordinary, but it killed the giant and won the war. And I think you are surrounded, you in your hand right now have the power and the potential to bring more love to people in your world than you realize. And the simple thing like dropping off a few bottles of Diet Coke, which might not seem no really big thing to you, was a big thing to my wife. And you know what? A big thing to me when I was away. You know, it's the small things, and even, you know, it's the small acts every single day that nobody sees. And how do we do that better? How do we serve one another humbly in love? How do we watch our words? How do we do all that stuff? And even like last night, I had prepared this message. I was fairly dialed in for this morning, even though I'm always up early. And I walk in here this morning at 8 o'clock. People are already in here. I just want to make a note of that. They're getting the heating's on, the stuff's on. This church is a miracle. I'm telling you that right now. I can give everybody a wee clap, man. That's a side note of my message. People serve, man. This is powerful what's happening. I'm excited about the future, but man, we do not want to forget about today. But I was thinking about this message, and I was preparing it, and then I was kind of tired. I've had a crazy couple of weeks, and of course everything happens once, and hey ho, we're going to Liverpool, get back, and whatever. A little bit of men's breakfast yesterday, and yesterday evening I was a little bit tired, and I was like, phew, need to get to bed early. And I just had this thought, I go, hey, I got to send Timmy a message. Because Timmy is a guy who comes to our church, and if you don't know Timmy Creeman, he's a legend. In fact, right now he's sitting up there controlling the screens. And Timmy yesterday, it was just, Ryan came to me afterwards, hey, who's that fella there? And I asked Timmy, he says, hey, man, that man's a legend. He was so kind to me, he was so welcoming. And there's these two men came from a men's group that I didn't even know were coming, just came off social media yesterday, and they wanted to see about the Hills Church. And they came to me afterwards and go, hey, I want to encourage you this morning. You had a great morning. But to tell you what, there was a guy, Timmy, he came over to us, and he just made us feel so welcome. Do you know what I did last night? I just sent the man a text. And as men, sometimes we struggle to do that. We kind of feel awkward, or, you know, I said, Timmy, I don't know, short message to encourage him. He walked into church this morning. I'm sitting up there getting ready for the message and just going over my talk and praying a little bit. He walks over, what's the crack, Timmy? First thing Timmy says is, hey, thanks so much for that message last night. It's not rocket science, Hills Church, right? And I met someone recently, and this is another side note. They said to me, hey, Andy, how comes your phone never stops? How comes your phone always pings? And I mean, it was just one of them days where, I don't know, it was probably nuisance callers trying to sell me a new iPhone. I don't know. But my phone was kind of crazy. And I said, listen, why are you asking? He said, well, no one ever texts me. This happens to me a load of times. It's happened to me multiple times when I've been in meetings like this. How does people really do all that to you and my phone never bings? And I said, well, how many messages do you send a week? How many messages do you reach? How many times do you reach out to somebody? Good question. As we close today's conversation on being bridge builders, not wall builders, how to build a bridge and not a wall, we've got to love as Christ loves us. You see, 1 John chapter 4, verse 19 says this: we love because he first loved us. Our ability to love other people comes from experiencing God's love first. And when you receive God's unconditional love, it's unbelievable how much more you can give that to others. You see, Jesus' love was sacrificial, it was patient, and never-ending. Real love is a commitment, not just a feeling. And the more that we spend time reflecting on God's love, the more we can show his love. And if you're struggling with this today, the incredible thing is that you can ask God for more. And as I close today's conversation, and we're talking about relationships, man, we could talk about this for weeks upon weeks. I want to encourage you that we are a church that does this really well. The northwest of Ireland, we are people that do this well. Yes, church? We are. We do relationships well. But we were designed to be in relationship with God and one another. In fact, the only thing in the Bible that God says he does not like is for us, you and I, to be alone. Listen, isolation is from the enemy. But isolation will actually kill you stone dead. But accountability, relationship with other people will save your life. Yes? Listen, we talked about this yesterday when Ryan was here. He talked about, and I'd said this to you guys, like he thought that I was doing all the courage into him. Listen, I was more encouraged from being around Ryan and his journey of what he was on than I was with him. He was with me. It's funny whenever iron sharpens iron, right? Everybody wins when encouragement comes to the table. But I want to make this point this morning as I close this message today. That let me actually start this way. Whenever you're around somebody, and let's face it, they're in ill form. Because I think we need to snap out of it a wee bit. I think we do. I think every one of us is smart. If you're here today and you think you're exempt from this, every one of us can get a bit of mood. Just me? Catch yourself on. Every single one of us have an attitude, form. We just want to, be in our own. Like me yesterday afternoon. I just wanted to be my own. Even been tried in the last 2 weeks with the kids around. I just wanted to be on my own, a little month. That's dead on, nothing wrong with that. But my attitude matters in that moment. My attitude does matter, and I have the power to control that. We cannot let ourselves off the hook with, hey, you're okay to go in your tangent or your mood or project that on other people. And here's the thing, when other people are a little bit jacked, here's the deal. We know it. You cannot hide it. It's as clear as the nose on your face. So as believers, and this is the challenge for us today, and we think about this whole conversation about relationship, are you connected to your source? Are we connected to God? Because I would allude to the fact when I'm meeting a believer and they're flying off the handle and they're not responding, they're reacting and they're agitated, or maybe when I'm having a conversation myself in the mirror here, let's just put myself here, when I'm not responding and reacting, when I'm in a little bit of a foul mood, when I'm in a little bit, it's amazing what happens to that mood and that atmosphere and that attitude. When I pause and I just stop myself and I go, God, help me. I want to be more like you. Ways here, right? And that's just my encouragement to you this morning as we go out into this week, as we go out into these days ahead of us, as we go out into this afternoon. Listen, God's got a plan and a purpose for you to reach and to connect and to help other people. Would you agree with that? He wants to use you today and tomorrow and the next day. And the more connected you are to Him, the more relatable and you will be to other people, the more infectious you will be. Listen, you know when you're around someone who's connected to God. You just do. Right? There's someone in this congregation that I know their dad, and he's just one of them men that's been known in our community, and he's just a steady man. And I've heard people over the years, numerous times, hey man, that man's a man of grace. That man's a man of patience. That man's a man of, we know that man's a man of God. I remember hearing about him from one of his cousins growing up, but I don't know many Christians, but I know one. Listen, people are watching. This generation may have stopped listening, but they are watching. So our actions matter, and they carry weight. And your actions in your world and your atmosphere carries way more power than you ever dreamed of or imagined. And as you go out into this week, listen, I want to ask you this question. How are you doing with your connection to God? How is your relationship with God? And if you want some help with that, I'd love to help you with it. So God, we thank you today for your goodness. God, we thank you, God, that we all can have a relationship with you before we have anything else. And God, I pray, God, help us with our relationship with each other today. And I pray, help us to understand the power of them. And I thank you, God, that we're doing better than we think. In Jesus' name, and we all said, amen. Hey, thanks again for checking out the Hills Church podcast. Hey, if this message has inspired or encouraged you in any way, why don't you share it with a friend? Hey, as well as that, we meet every Sunday at 11 a.m. at the Waterside Theatre, and we'd love to see you at one of our services. But hey, thanks again for checking out the podcast. Why don't you subscribe to our channel?